Okay, well, thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here, to be with all of you. It's also a real inspiration to meet so many people who dedicated such a big part of their lives and their professional careers to the idea of peace, to the ideas of reconciliation. And I think you all, in many ways, really epitomize the fact that peace is not just an abstract idea. It is something that people have to build every day through patience, through persistence, through partnerships. It takes a long time. I want to thank CMI, the Martti Ahtisaari Peace Foundation, the Kosovo Center for Strategic Studies, for making this dialogue possible, and really extend a very warm welcome to all of the civil society actors and the UN colleagues who are here today. I want to say that I'm going to give a framework really that touches on both the CSO participation and some of the aspects of the UN peace-building architecture, and keep that reasonably short so we can fill in with some questions later as necessary. I go back to where I was, that, really meeting with this, very simple understanding out of our hard-won experience that peace does not happen on its own, that it's very easy for division to spread, for mistrust, or for trust to evaporate, more or less overnight between different parties. So the need for building peace on a deliberate and inclusive basis, and again, something that all of you know. As JIBECKE was saying, this dialogue is really part of a wider effort to place civil society more at the center of the UN peacebuilding architecture. It can be seen in its historical trajectory as well. And even if I just think of this most recent period with the current SG, the new agenda for peace, the pact for the summit for the future, and the pact for the future. It's amazing to think that the pact for the future was adopted just a year ago, and yet it in some ways seems like a document from another time, But in there, I think are really some, really important elements. And as much as I say that because of certain shifts in the geopolitical environment, it doesn't detract from the inherent value of that document, the very sensible things that are in there. And of course, then the ongoing global peace building, review of the peace building architecture that you spoke about, that comes up, and I'll come back to that in a minute. If we think about where is the convergence of these different processes, it really is that peace is sustainable only when we have this broad participation, only when trust is strengthened from a bottom-up approach, and when local leadership has the opportunity and is given the space and the opportunity to drive things forward. Over the past 2 decades, the UN's peacebuilding architecture has really developed around 3 main components. The Peacebuilding Commission itself, member states coming together, the Peacebuilding Support Office, the Secretariat for the Commission, UN staff members, and the Peacebuilding Fund, again a UN trust fund, funded by member states, first voluntarily, and then in the most recent iteration, after years of work, first contribution of $50 million out of the assessed budget. So the hope there is to embed the funding for the Peacebuilding Fund into the regular budget process, rather than being subject to fluctuations on annual or biannual pledging conferences. Unfortunately, all of that becomes much more problematic. And indeed, many of you will have seen in the Secretary General's UN80 thinking, how can we combine some of these flagship funds of the UN, the Central Emergency Response Fund, which is a humanitarian fund, which I used to manage a very long time ago, the SDG fund and the Peacebuilding fund. How do we combine these things and make them work better together?
There was a lot of discussion about how UN means or existing opportunities to support peace are often highly bureaucratic or sometimes even inaccessible to particular contexts. So we are talking about a situation where you have conflict ongoing, war, and your criteria for a project is that you need to be registered, established, and have. So these don't work in this context. So the discussion was that we need a more, in a way, flexible and adaptable system that reaches the people. The second dimension of this was that often the funding for peace goes through intermediaries and not directly. So intermediaries would get the biggest portion of the funds, and then you will have local initiatives or local NGOs often, getting what's available or accessible in that. The third message is that civil society should not be treated as a guest in the UN peacebuilding architecture, but be a pillar of it. And we see, for instance, in Western Balkans, this being a reality. Right now, civil society is providing the only platform where, for instance, in our case, Kosovo and Serbia are meeting and are exchanging, when the track one or more formal institutional aspects decline. But also civil society is providing direct services, direct support to communities where there can be more challenges for governmental institutions to access for various reasons. Now, just on PBAR that was mentioned, actually tomorrow, as I understand, both the UN Security Council and General Assembly will vote on the twin resolutions. In the Balkans, when there are twins, we are particularly happy, but the question is, which one will be more trouble? and in this case, but jokes aside, this is very important. And for a region like Western Balkans, where UN has been central in building peace, and as we have seen in recent developments, even countries like Kosovo cited as a positive examples of peace building through UN. These are not, as Stephen mentioned, just abstract resolutions. They really affect our everyday realities and how we engage with UN and what UN can do with us. And as you mentioned, the UN as an organization wants to be more active. And so these resolutions that will be voted tomorrow are bringing some change. PBC is being asked to have more programmatic, structured approach, data to be integrated. We will have now the Peacebuilding Week, right? That will, in June, that will be celebrated. So these are all good practices. What was a bit, I think, missing perhaps also from our discussions that we had is that, for instance, we discussed about multilateralism being very important. In initial drafts of these resolutions, multilateralism was all over the place.
Thank you so much. First of all, big thank you to the organizers, being the only, I believe, civil society representative from Bosnia is a big honor, also a bit of a pressure, not gonna lie, to represent my people the best. But on another hand, today is Bosnia Statehood Day, and the other day we marked the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement. So it feels awkwardly fitting to be in Kosovo on Bosnia Statehood Day after many challenges that both of our countries went through, and still we're not, definitely not enough politically aligned, unfortunately, especially on the 12th of Bosnia, but I'm very happy that now we can at least come to you visa-free. But I do feel that we very much have a shared humanity and shared experiences between both contexts. So it's quite a pleasure on that side to be here as well. I will talk, as JIBECKE was mentioning, but I will talk more as a practitioner. So sorry, it might sound a bit more rough and less analytical, but that's how I've been bread, but I will try to share the good and the bad, or challenges and the added values of what we've seen as a more grassroots peace building organization in the country and in the partnership with the UN. So picture this: it was 2011. That was about 16 years after the Bosnian War and genocide ended, and it was 5 or 6 years after the UN Office on Genocide Prevention and Responsibility to Protect was established, and it was largely established also as a response to Yugoslav wars, but then the Rwandan genocide and a lot of conflicts that ended in the 90s, and the UN Office had no idea how to step into a country that was still very much raw from the conflict and the genocide. Luckily, thankfully, they chose the path of working with civil society organizations, my organization included, and we started it in 2011 with some of the first visits of the office to the country, and my lord, it was a huge room. We brought together survivors from all different ethnic groups, media representatives, civil society representatives, youth groups. It was there were very rough discussions there, but they were incredibly meaningful and needed. They took on for several years after, supported also by the country team of the UN. And at the time, it felt like so messy and so impossible to kind of untangle the historical grievances, where to start. It was even really difficult to hold dialogue as what the dialogue should be. People were getting up, people were getting very emotional, leaving the chairs, going back and forth. But we continued. The office saw the point of it. We started doing quite a lot more of capacity building. We started introducing our civil society to the UN, to the atrocity risk framework, how to recognize risks, how to report them, starting to create these true links between Bosnia and New York at the time, which...
Thank you for having me today here on this panel. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And I will explain more how the situation in Kosovo is going on for these 25 years. Like you said, I have experience of more than 20 years working on a dialogue, reconciliation, and dealing with the past. And I must admit, not with a great success, because in Kosovo we didn't have a great success in these efforts. This work that we try to do in Kosovo for civil society, it looks more like a work of Sisyphus from Greek mythology, meaning that we are pushing all the time, and then the stone returns back, and then we push again the stone up the hill. And the civil society and international organization really put a lot of good effort in Kosovo in dealing with the past, reconciliation, dialogue between communities. But when politicians come to the spot, then we, after several good steps that we had forward, unfortunately we had 2-3 steps back. That was through the history in Kosovo. We had several bodies that wanted to deal with reconciliation and dealing with the past, but all of them failed when politicians took the main role, and had some success when civil society, with help of international community and international organization, was trying to do something. Unfortunately, in this moment, I think that we are in a moment where we are going several steps back with the current government. Before this government, civil society pushed a lot to establish a truth commission. So we had a working group that was preparing the ground for the truth commission, and we were close to establish this truth commission in Kosovo. That would be a great step for the Kosovo and all communities living in Kosovo. But with the current government, everything of this initiative, all these initiatives stopped, and they took totally different turn. When I say different turn, I think that all efforts currently in Kosovo that was done by the government are done to prepare a lawsuit against Serbia. That I don't say that shouldn't be done, but I think that not the whole effort, the whole money and everything that is available right now should be going in this direction. So we're going in the direction of, again, putting ourselves with some kind of conflict, blaming each other instead of dealing with the past and trying to see where was the problem. When we're talking about global agenda, like I said, I think that it's very important that CSOs are the main
So in Africa, the situation is very. 25th anniversary of the